Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Welcome to the Performance Matters podcast from GP Strategies, your talent transformation partner. In each episode, we'll interview industry experts and explore best practices and innovative insights to help your organization improve performance.
I'm your host, Michael Teal. I'm pleased to be joined in the virtual studio by Lori Mazon, co-founder, president, and chief coaching officer of Sounding Board. For those that haven't heard of Sounding Board, we'll get to that, but I'm talking to you right now. So tell me a little bit about Lori. Just give us your bio here.
I had a very interesting career. I actually started out as a social worker right out of college. Did that for 3 years and it kind of broke my heart. I love development. So then I went back to school and I got trained as a therapist and got my advanced degrees and ended up not liking that work at all. And the reason I didn't like that work, it was all facing into the past. It was all healing past trauma and things about the past. And my whole way of thinking is really about the future. So I never practiced as a therapist. I went into training and development. And one of the things that happened when I was a therapist, I kept asking this one question, which is like, what have you done differently since the last time we spoke? And I kept getting feedback saying, you can't ask that. That's not about the past. That's about the present. And about 10 years later, I heard people asking that question. I'm like, what is this? And it was that of the coaching industries. As a coach, I was like, they're asking my question. And because I had already been thinking about this for 10 years, I was one of the very early certified coaches. I got trained even before the International Coach Federation, which is like the industry association, started. And so been out there coaching leaders for the last really 30 years, 20 years as a private practitioner. And then about 8 years ago, joined up with a previous coaching client and started Sounding Board. And our idea was bring executive style coaching to all leaders in an organization. And really it was because when I talked to those most senior leaders, they were like, this is so helpful. I needed this way earlier in my career as well.
So you said, let's see what are some opportunities to do that here. So let's talk about coaching here. For those that might be interested in implementing or strengthening the utilization of coaching for leadership development, where should we start this conversation?
Well, I guess maybe a little bit of conversation about what actually is coaching.
I'm glad you said that, so I don't always have to be the nincompoop in the room here.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a long time. I love it when my thought leaders come in here and just break it down like a fifth grader to you. Like, tell me what coaching means in the real world here.
I think coaching became kind of like a buzzword in a way, and everybody wanted to call themselves a coach. The coaching that we do at Sounding Board, and I've done in my career, is specifically focused on leadership development. And it's a form of personalized development where you establish a deep relationship with another party that helps you take a look at your mindsets and your beliefs and things that, may be blocking you or keeping you from moving forward. This style of coaching helps you create new perspectives, new ways of thinking, and then links behaviors to that new thinking so that you fundamentally begin thinking and operating differently. In the leadership world, that's operating maybe a level or two higher than is actually your titling. And
interesting.
Pretty amazing to get this kind of 2x or 3x growth in maybe like 6 months. And I think that people really like is that it just has a big ripple effect for the organization. But I do want to Yeah, separate it from some other things. So
Okay.
therapy, same thing. That was more
Right.
backward looking and kind of undoing some of those historical traumas and patterns. And then another approach for development that people talk about a lot is mentoring.
Right.
And mentoring is when somebody who has already done what you're doing is going to share their experience with you and likely give you advice around what they think might be useful for you. This is quite different than coaching, where the coach is never going to be telling you what to do. The coach is going to be giving you opportunities to think differently. And then it's up to you to, with the coach, to determine which ways of thinking really fit for you as a leader, your approach, your
Hmm.
style, your values, as well as the values and approach and impact you're trying to have in your organization.
If I'm understanding you correctly, and this is helpful for me too, because I'm just like you, I hear the word coaching thrown about. I hear coaching and mentoring. I'm hearing you say coaches are asking questions and prompting you to think critically and question things, where a mentor's, like you said, they've been there, done that. They're the not necessarily the wise elder, but they've got the
Yeah,
wisdom and
kind of
they're
like that.
maybe guiding you, but they're two different things. And it sounds like they both can kind of coexist. Is that fair to
Yes.
say? Okay.
Yes.
But-
I think they're
Okay.
both useful for different purposes. Mentoring is very good if you need functional information. If you're like a product leader and you need how to create a PRD or something, that's really useful.
Got it.
If
Okay.
you're a product leader and you need to learn how to lead a large organization, then coaching is probably going to be more useful for
Okay.
you, because the other is only going to give you one perspective on that, their historical perspective, and coaching is going to give you multiple perspectives on that.
Yeah, I'm getting excited just hearing about this. The other thing I was thinking about from what you were saying about if we just isolate on coaching is, you said coaches can help you basically equip you for maybe two levels higher than you're at right now. I kept
Mhm.
thinking about you're basically battling that Peter principle we've heard about for years, where somebody gets, elevated to a point of incompetence, but I was almost thinking about, wow, what if you could plan for that? And you're like, let's ladder this person up for when they actually get there, they're ready for it.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think everyone's had this experience, either themselves or with, their own manager or boss, where someone gets moved up to a new role that's significantly larger and they haven't had any support or development. Pipeline is one of the best ways to use it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're setting them up.
you're helping them be successful, yes. And if you get there and you're not quite ready, leadership coaching is very accelerated way to level up that leader to take on that larger challenge.
Right. Since we're sort of still on this idea of breaking it down, tell me a little bit about the history of executive coaching. How long has it been around in general, do you think?
It started in the early 90s, started really with executive level, and I mean true executive level in the C suite. It's interesting though, because one thing that happened is in the early days, or executive coaching was kind of geared towards what was called derailed executives.
Okay.
And yeah, you might imagine no one wanted to be called derailed. So a lot of the early coaching I did was really behind closed doors. No one knew that it was happening. And the leader would just get better, and people would be like, wow, look at you. But no one knew why, because no one wanted to admit they had a coach. It would mean they had a problem. Then,
Interesting.
about 10 years later, organizations started realizing, wait a minute, this executive coaching thing is really developmental. Let's use it to prepare leaders. Let's use it to advance leaders versus using it remedially. And it's changed quite a bit, maybe over the last, say, 15, 20 years.
That's a great shift. I mean, that feels just like a really healthy shift for
Yeah.
organizational performance. I'm kind of a stat head type person. Are there any stats that you can share that might quantitatively show this type of performance increase?
Oh, 100%. One way we at Sounding Board have brought executive style coaching to all the leaders in the organization as put it on a technology platform. So it's virtual. Because one of the
Oh,
original problems was it was just too expensive. And so making it virtual cut down the cost so that organizations can provide this type of coaching for a lot more people in the organization.
okay.
And one reason they want to do this is because the impact is so high. So if you want to talk about ROI, there's so much research on coaching ROI, but it's around 200 to 700% of the cost, which is like a crazy high ROI. And then just more,
Wow.
yeah, more specifically, like the sounding board itself, we report about a 55% increase in productivity after just 3 to 6 months of coaching. And one of the cool things is that this increase in productivity has a 90% sustention rate. It's sustained 90%,
Wow.
which is really quite amazing because if you know, like there's kind of like a forgetting curve and
Oh,
things start
absolutely.
to drop off over time. So the fact that it's sustained over time is really quite amazing. And that has to do with linking the new thinking to new behavior. So an example is if you just try to change your behavior in a habit forming kind of rote way, then you have had the experience that that's challenging, and under stress people just fall back to their previous way of operating. That's why when you go to the gym in January it's packed full, but when you go in February it's empty. So sustainable, which is really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about sounding board itself. So tell me about what was the genesis of this idea coming up in the first place in your mind? I mean, you were already a successful coach, right? You were busy, you're doing things. What inspired you to create this amalgam of platform and people?
Yeah, I think it was really just distribution. So my previous client had come and said, like, hey, this leadership coaching was the best professional development I ever had. I want to bring it to more people. And as an solo practitioner, I can maybe do 1,000 coaching sessions a year. And even that might be a lot.
That
But
sounds like a
through
lot.
yeah, through Sounding Board, we can do 50 or 100,000 coaching sessions a year. So it's really just this
Hmm.
desire to bring the value of coaching to just a lot more leaders and organizations, and particularly new or frontline leaders that generally don't get a lot of support. And then those poor plagued middle manager, we call them senior leaders, the people in the middle. They're not the front line, but they're not at the top of the house. They're the ones often getting squeezed by circumstances and people. And
Ah,
just being able to provide support and development there seemed like it would be very valuable. And we have learned that it actually is very valuable.
absolutely. Well, I can see now how our coaching and leadership practice group identified Sounding Board and said, this is a great partner to bring in when the opportunity presents itself here. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about your insight as a coach here. So if you had to boil it down to, let's say, a secret, if you had to say, like, this is a secret to effective leadership coaching, what would it be, Lori?
Well, let me say it in two ways. I think one way is from an organizational perspective. I think the secret is a consistent, high quality experience for all of the people being coached in the organization. And what I experienced in my own career is most of the coaching delivery groups had very large networks of coaches who just did their own style of coaching, and it was different for every person. What
Okay.
Sounding Board's done is we created a structure and almost a framework that all the coaching is done inside of. So if I'm in an organization and I'm being coached, and so is my colleague, when we talk about our coaching experience, it'll be pretty similar. And I think of it like one of those gallery walls, like where you have a wall with all the pictures have a black frame, say. So we
Yes.
the frame, but then the coach and their coachee or their, participant paints the picture. So you get all the individual, contextual, personalized approach, but yet everyone feels like they kind of had a similar, consistent experience. That's been very, very fun and interesting to create. And I think our customers have told us how valuable that is. I think for the leader themselves, this uncovering kind of like outdated or no longer relevant beliefs and mindset
Mm,
is the most critical thing. And it just goes way beyond like something like accountability or habit formation. Kind of think of it almost like being a sculptor. You're like chipping off pieces that are keeping the client from being, the potential leader, amazing masterpiece of a leader that they,
right.
yes.
I love that idea of essentially kind of getting to blind spots and what's holding them back. Or,
Yes.
boy, that's great.
You might notice like the farther you get up in the organization, the more people don't want to tell you what those blind spots are. So you kind of need this neutral person who can tell you the hard truth, even if you don't like it, and help you use that to develop yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need somebody to call you out on that for sure. This is something, in doing a little reading, I've heard a quote. I'd like your feedback on this. The quote I heard is that leadership coaching is this era's secret weapon. You didn't write that quote, did you?
I think I did. I wrote that in my book. I might have
I'm gonna
stolen
have
it from somebody else, though, not sure.
to tell me more about that in your mind, though, as that is the secret weapon, though.
I mean, I would say having been at it 30 years, that environment, the work environment, the leadership environment has changed so
Hmm.
dramatically that a new modalities really needed to help leaders navigate the current environment. And I would say coaching is really the only developmental, like corporate organizational developmental approach that's individualized, personalized, completely context specific, in real
Mm-hmm.
time, in real life, ongoing mindset shifting, behavior channel changing, accelerated practice out there. So, yes, you can get pieces of these with your training. Obviously, it's useful in skill development. AI is even helping some of this, but nothing gives you the total package like coaching does. Now, the environment's changed
Yeah.
so much.
Oh my
Like when I
gosh.
started, leaders had about a 10 to 20-year trajectory for the development. And that was primarily because they stayed at an organization, most of their career life. Now employees are turning over so quickly, less than 3-year tenure, and leaders is less than 5 years. So you need an approach that's really accelerated to develop the leaders in this much shortened time frame. I would say a couple other things is for the first time in history, there's 5 generations working in the workplace together. As a leader, if you have to manage one generation, that's hard enough. You have to manage 5 generations. Wow. And then you're going to add the changes in the office environment, no longer in the office all the time, being hybrid
Oh my
and
gosh.
remote, the variable location, a mobile workforce. Like, how do you deal with that as well? And then add some diversity on top of it all. Like when I started coaching, I only coached men for the first 10 years because that was all that was in the senior leadership, white men primarily in the US. And now the populations are just so much more diverse and culturally different and global. So you just made everything, just much more complex for
Oh,
leaders.
I think I need some coaching just based on everything you're saying of all the disruptions and changes we're facing right here. And I'm assuming that's kind of what preempted your book here. So, before we
Yeah.
go, I did sort of allude to it. You recently wrote a book called Leadership Revolution: The Future of Developing Dynamic Leaders. I'm assuming some of these things you've just mentioned were just in your head and you said, I need to get this out on paper. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. Completely. I've been thinking about this for years now and watching the changes, and I just wanted to put it out there for everybody to understand the dramatic shift that's gone on, say, between the 80s, 90s, and now.
Oh, what have you seen as a change in the whole leadership development, even the training aspect? Has that shortened up as well over the past 30 years?
Oh, yeah. When I was in training and development in, say, late 80s, early 90s, we used to do 4-day, even 5-day, a whole week
Wow.
on offsite training, leader development, all kinds of different things. And people actually loved it at that time. They got to leave their office and
Right.
go
A
somewhere else.
retreat.
It was kind of like a special event. And now
Right.
I think we're down to like 1 hour online learning. No, people aren't in the office as much, so they don't have a strong desire to leave the office. And I think that like the time frame is a big factor, because if you're trying to develop your leadership in like 1 hour or 30 minutes at a time, that's going to have to be pretty impactful for you to like string those pieces of development together to create a comprehensive whole. So one
Oh,
thing that's
wow.
been very nice about coaching is how GP is utilizing this, and our partnership is you take those workshops and trainings and smaller events, and then you add a coach that helps you string that together, so it does create a lasting change for the leader that can be applied directly into their work life following the coaching session. So it's kind of like the combination effect is you get
Absolutely.
triple value.
Yeah, that's what I think is sort of and I think I used the word amalgamation earlier, but that's
Mhm.
why at GP we work so hard at finding great partners like yourself, because there's this magic between the learning and development consultant and somebody saying this is the right tool for this unique job. Here's a great partner in Sounding Board that we've already vetted, and you don't have to go through the 1 month and hold the demo and all that. We're going to bring you to the table. We're honored to have you there. I was just curious, in terms of the short form stuff, are you guys already doing TikToks and things like that?
No, we're not quite in that realm. But I have to say, I think some people are.
Well, Lori, I have to say this has been a real pleasure. For those that want to learn more or check out your book, where would be a great place to send them?
Oh, sure. They can go to the Sounding Board website, soundingboardinc.com, and take a look at our coaching there, and also the book Leadership Revolution. And you can find that book also on Amazon and any place you want to buy books. And by the way,
Awesome.
if you want to contact me, you can. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, just look up Lori Maison.
Well, Lori, I want to, on behalf of our global listening audience, I want to thank you for sharing some great insight about Sounding Board. I'm really excited to learn more about it personally. So thank you so much.
The Performance Matters podcast is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts or listen on our website at gpstrategies.com.